What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Battery Mates podcast. I am Dirty Dave, and that's my man, the Sandman Sean over there. Sean, what is going on as we get into these exciting December months in Major League Baseball's offseason?
Oh, not much, man. You're starting to see some guys sign some deals. A couple of the big starting pitchers come off the market. Some other smaller pieces that are happening. So Stove's kind of heating up a little bit. We're getting in real close to those winter meetings that we're going to be having, and that kind of tends to be the launching point for some of the bigger dominoes to start falling. So I'm excited for the winter meetings. I'm excited for the rest of the off season, and I think we're just like something like 120 days away from like opening day or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that comes up, you mentioned the big pitcher signing, the smaller move starting, but new rumors start to pop up as well, and that's kind of been the talk of the Braves world this week. Is some rumors that we will get to in just a second. But first, I do want to make sure we take care of all the housekeeping needs here. If you are listening to us on Spotify, we have a YouTube channel. Come on by, you can see our smiling faces. Give a smile to the camera when you can, Sean. I chose the wrong time to do that. If you're on YouTube,
That's all right.
but if you're on YouTube and you don't want to see awkwardness like that, you can always come to Spotify. Follow us in the Battery Mates podcast on both ends of those. We are also on social media: Facebook, Twitter /X/Twitter, if we're being honest. And we have some other social media stuff coming up in the works soon. But give us a follow there. Answer any questions you got, or talk about Braves baseball. And let's get into that right now. Let's start talking about some Braves baseball here. We've had four actual transactions since the last time we talked, Sean. Some big names on the way out, and a lot of changes for the bullpen, it looks like.
Yeah, man. So I didn't expect the last time we recorded to have lost both Michael Soroka and Kyle Wright. So obviously, two very beloved arms for the Braves. Guys that have been there for quite a while, kind of grew up there as an Atlanta Brave. Watching Soroka come back from the Achilles twice, Kyle Wright battling back, being a huge part of that 2021 World Series. So you saw that both guys injured. Wright goes down with the shoulder, going to be shut down for all of 2024, and it's kind of the Grim Reaper of surgeries as far as pitchers go. It's not a surgery a lot of pitchers come back from, and this is one of those times AA has to be a general manager and not a fan. This is one of those times where, if we're the White Sox or the Royals, like we made the trade to, or the Athletics or Pirates or some of those guys, maybe we hang on and let Kyle Wright rehab for all of 2024. Go ahead and pay him his ARB number, let him sit there and try to have him back in 25. Soroka was out of options. So again, if we're one of those teams, we throw Soroka into the rotation and say, okay, you can figure it out up here at the big league level. Braves aren't in one of those. Braves aren't one of those teams right now. The Braves are very much in the early stages of their winning window, and they're chasing World Series. And so a lot of the moves that we saw over the last couple of weeks were house cleaning moves. They were moves that we got rid of guys that weren't going to contribute next year. And we got rid of guys that we didn't trust to contribute moving forward. Of course, we're thankful for everything that Kyle Wright and Michael Soroka, all of those guys. Nicky Lopez became somebody that the Braves fans loved in just the short time we had him this past year. Very much, very, very Jock and Soler-esque in regards to the way that Braves country kind of took to him. And so, you see some of those guys leave, and as a fan, you're like, man, that sucks. You watch Soroka battle back. He came up and down a couple times last year, and you just hoped he had it, and he really didn't. And so you have to make those decisions. And does it suck as a fan? Absolutely, because you get attached to those guys. But at the same time, if Soroka's not going to help us win a World Series next year, and they don't know that he's going to be a piece of that moving forward, and we don't have the option to keep him in AAA for a year to figure it out, then I think that's the move to make. And it's kind of the same thing with Kyle Wright. And so we salute him, we thank him. Braves country's going to miss him. It's going to be one of those guys you root for. You know, I'll tune in to watch Soroka pitch for the White Sox. I'll find those games. The Braves aren't playing or they're playing at a different time. I'll find Soroka pitching for the White Sox. You know, in 2025, if Wright's back and good and pitching for the Royals, I will find time to watch him. But from a GM's perspective, AA made the right moves, and he bolstered the bullpen, which is very quickly shaping up to be the best bullpen in baseball, I dare say. And so I'm happy with the moves from a baseball perspective and from a let's go fix what we didn't do the last 2 years. Let's get back to the World Series from that perspective. But as a fan, obviously, we're going to miss Maple Maddox and Kyle Wright.
Yeah, and talk about what's going out. You know, you definitely as a fan hate to see it, as you mentioned, but you know the move's got to be made. What they're bringing in is specifically pieces for a bullpen they knew they couldn't trust last year, and they're bringing in two guys who are coming off really, really rough 2023s, and in the case of Aaron Bummer, a couple of really rough seasons, but guys who have some of the best stuff in baseball, high velocity guys that you feel could come in and pull that Tyler Matzik, walk in there and just strike out three guys when you need three strikeouts. With a really good defense for the Braves, I think that Aaron Bummer is a really, really good addition to the bullpen. I've watched him for quite a bit, and he's always somebody who I felt like wasn't going to put the team in more trouble. If anything, it's going to be up to the defense to stop them from going station to station to station. And if you don't have the right strategy or defense, then your numbers are going bad. His FIP compared to his ERA is one of the biggest discrepancies I've ever seen. I mean, we're talking 4+ points between those two, which shows that I think he's doing the right things, and I think the Braves can trust him to be that lefty specialist in the bullpen. Come in and get one or two guys, don't even pitch a full inning, just get out of a jam or two for us. And Jackson Cower, his numbers are not good. I just looked today, and Baseball Reference has him as a -2.5 career WAR. But he's a former top 100 prospect. He's a former guy the Royals thought was going to be a big piece for them in the future. It just didn't turn out that way. But can the Braves, who have had a nice little history of fixing guys and getting them to their potential in the bullpen, are they going to have that success with those guys? Is the question you have to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Bummer is obviously his ERA was bloated this year. There's no other way to put it. His actual ERA was somewhere north of 6.6. His expected ERA was 3.53. So you kind of see that his, like you talked about, his FIP 3.62. He's got a 3.81 DRA. He had a nearly 60% ground ball rate, and they were hitting it into an awful White Sox defense. And so it just is one of those things. The opponents only hit 236 off of Bummer this year, and he still had a 6.6 ERA. That's not something you're like. That's another one of those deals, much like the Pierce Johnson deal at the deadline in 23, where you're like, if you just look at those big numbers, you're like, what are we doing? But when you start looking at the peripherals and you start seeing those things that are out there, and you're like, man, let's get Pierce Johnson out of Coors, or let's get Bummer away from the awful White Sox and what they've been. Bummer, I mean, here's the thing. Bummer was really good from 2019 through 2022. He was really good. He had his highest from 19 to 21, rather. Sorry. He had a 2.13 ERA in 19. In 2020, that was the 9-game COVID season. He had a 0.96 ERA, a 3.1 ERA in 21. I think he was I didn't write it down for whatever reason. He was a sub 4 ERA in 22 also. So his ERA is good. His FIP over those 4 years, 3.41, 1.80, 2.96, and 3.19. really good FIP numbers there, and batting average against 184, 152, 202, and 288. So if you get that Aaron Bummer for guys that essentially you traded Aaron Bummer for two guys you were going to non-tender, a triple A plus pitcher and Schuster, and then Goins. So it wasn't quite the lopsided trade it looked like it was. The Braves went and got something for Soroka and got something for Lopez, and so I like the Bummer trade. Coer, the good thing is he's got an option left. So, like you said, the Braves have a track record of being really good at turning some arms around. I always think of Jesse Chavez. He is Superman in a Braves uniform, and he was bad everywhere else in between. He comes to the Braves, he was great. He goes to the Angels, goes to the Cubs, just not good. And then, we traded. He was part of the trade for Raisel Iglesias, and then he got cut, and we re-signed him, and he went back to pitching the same way that he always does. So I think there is something in that Braves pitching room, so to speak, and I think you take a flyer on him. What was Wright wasn't going to play this year, and who knows? Right shoulder might be cooked, and so I think you take the flyer on Jackson, and you just say, hey, we've got a year to figure it out, and one more straight spring training. If we don't figure it out by then, you cut your ties, and and you're not really out anything. And so I think both deals were deals that needed to be made. I'm really excited about Bummer. Like you said, I do think he can definitely be that Tyler Matzik, AJ Minter, big power lefty, throws hard, a lot of ground balls. People don't hit him very well. And so I think he's going to be a good piece to that bullpen in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, and the only other move that we didn't touch on yet was the Penn Murphy getting non-tender, but then also signing a deal, which is a very strange time. You had Braves Twitter argue with each other. Why did we get this guy? We're just gonna let him go, and then a week later it's like, well, we didn't let him go, so now things are a little different. Um, I know you talked a little bit about Murphy last time. Were you surprised by this process, or what do you think overall about them bringing him back on a deal instead of the tender?
Well, I think it was two things. I think they took the opportunity to get a deal done that they thought made sense before they had to decide whether to tender him. And so I think that was one thing. And then when they didn't get that deal done, they non-tendered him. They also non-tendered Jackson Stevens, who was brought back on a similar deal. And both of those guys took non-guaranteed split deals. And so bullpen depth. Obviously, Murphy's coming off of the UCL surgery, probably not going to be available until mid to late summer. So will he have an effect in 2024? I don't know. We'll see. But it's bullpen depth. Before the injury, you've got in 2021 and 2022, those two seasons, Murphy had a 2.70 ERA in 80 games pitched. Jackson Stevens in 2029 had a 3.69 ERA in 39 games pitched. So both of those guys are solid bullpen arms, good guys to have out there for depth purposes. And we really are building a really, really good bullpen. And we actually can't forget about the free agent signing that we had in regards to strengthening our bullpen or maybe our rotation in the deal that we made for Ronaldo Lopez.
Oh yeah, you know what? I just didn't put that in my agenda. That was a big mistake. Ronaldo Lopez is a huge arm to get. That's probably the biggest move of the season when you think about what he could be for the Braves because there's a lot of rumors about what's going on with him. Is he going to be a starter? Is he going to be an eighth inning guy? Is he going to be a mid to long reliever? Guy who closes the door in a bases loaded jam or something like that. But he can do all of those things. He can do every single one of those. He's done them in his career. Do you have an idea of what you think that they're going to do with Reynaldo Lopez? Is he one of our starters, or is there a different role for him?
Well, I know that I've read rather that they are going to stretch him out for spring training. So he's going to be ready to start games in spring training. I think whether it starts that way in 24 is going to depend upon what we get on the either in the trade market or in free agency in regards to a starting pitcher. If we don't get a deal done with one of the big remaining free agent starting pitchers, somebody like Jordan Montgomery, Erod, or we don't go out and make a trade for somebody like Tyler Glasnow or Dylan Cease, then I think you see Ronaldo Lopez competing for that fifth rotation spot. I do think that the Braves are probably they're going into this expecting Fried, Strider, Morton, Elder, and they're looking for a fifth guy. And whether that's the number 5 guy behind those 4, or whether that's the number 3 guy that slots in behind Strider and Fried, or whether that's a 1C to go with Strider and Fried, I think that they're looking for one arm, and if they find the right arm, they're going to get it. And if they don't think they've got the right one, they're going to rock with that and hope that Lopez or maybe Waldrop or Smith Shaver or Vines or some of that depth that we have can come up and pick it up. But I do think that we see that AA, just like always, is not going to overspend when it comes to the starting pitcher market. So, Dave, I want to ask you. You always ask me the question, so I'm gonna flip one over to you. Okay. So I told you I think Ronaldo Lopez is going to start out in spring training stretched out, ready to start games if he needs to. But A, do you think that that's the correct way to go with Ronaldo Lopez? So that's question one. Question two, what do you think about the deals that Sonny Gray um, and Aaron Nola got? And do you think that the Braves missed out? Should they have stepped up and paid more? Do you think that was right around where they should have gotten? Kind of tell me where you're at with that, and then I'll fill you in on my thoughts on the back end.
Yeah. So first of all, question one: do I think Ronaldo Lopez should be there? No, I don't think he's a starter. I think his role is to push his, 97-mile-per-hour fastball to 100 and get guys out. We could go out there and make you a meh pitcher with good stuff, but they can't go deep into games, or we could make you a bullpen hitman. We put you out there, you put offenses to sleep, and he's much better in that role. And when he's in that role, even if he makes a mistake or two, it's not, well, now it's the second inning and it's 4-0 the other team because they made us pay for one of those mistakes he made. He makes a mistake in the eighth inning, in the seventh or eighth inning. You could always put another bullpen guy because you have guys now that can get you out of jams. So I like the risk in the bullpen. I like him in almost like an Andrew Miller role for the 2016 Cleveland Indians, where it's, I can go and either get you 3 innings or I can get you out of a crazy jam by striking a couple guys out. That's what I hope they do with him. And yeah, I mean, even when I look at these other deals, which is the other question you had, the question number two, I mean, those deals to me, they were doable. If they got outbid, I would wonder why. Why would you want to get outbid by your division rival for Aaron Nola? Why did you not pay enough to get a Sonny Gray? I mean, he's going to a team that is willing to spend money. Could they all of a sudden trade for a guy or sign another guy or two and be contenders next year? I mean, what if the Cardinals knock you out of the playoffs with Sonny Gray pitching 2 or 3 of the games? Now you're thinking, well, that was a dumb move, right? Um, you know, I want one more arm you can count on come the playoffs. If I don't want it to be Ronaldo Lopez trying to start games. I don't want it to be, AJ Smith Shaver who's had a 4.5 ERA all season. You're hoping it's this we can get good Smith Shaver today or bad. We can't afford to have the bad one. I think you got to spend the money. And if that's all that is 25, 30 mil a year, you got to make it happen if you're the Braves, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think on Ronaldo Lopez, I will say I think he needs to be the Colin McHugh of the Braves bullpen. Okay, he could come in and pitch 1 inning in the eighth in certain situations. Other times, Elder goes out and gives you 4, and you need somebody to pick up 2 or 3 innings. He can go out there and do that. So I think that's the role that he is going to flourish in the most as a Brave, I think. So I'm with you there. As far as the starting pitchers, If I remember correctly, Nola got 7 years from the Phillies. Braves offered him 6 at 162. So I don't think it was a money issue with Nola. I think it was a year issue with Nola. And you also wonder with Nola, you got to understand, and we have to think about the fact that at some point the Braves are going to have to re-sign Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. And so those, when you get deals that are now stretching into 6-7 years, you have to wonder because the Acuna and Albies are going to come up in that 6 to 7 years, and what is that going to look like when the time comes? What's Acuna's contract going to look like? After his 2 option years are done, I think it's last year's 2028. So you have to wonder, like, do you want to be stuck locked into a contract of a 37-year-old, 38-year-old pitcher, paying him $27 million a year when you're going to have to turn around and pay Ronald Acuna Jr. whatever it is he's going to command when that time comes? And so I think with Nola, you have those two things that kind of went into that decision. And I think with Gray, I think it might have been a durability concern. What the Braves' weakness has been the last 2 postseason has been they've went into the postseason with banged up pitching. 2 years ago, Fried was sick. Strider was coming off the oblique injury. They got lit up. Philly sent him home. This year, Morton didn't get to pitch in the DS. Fried was coming off of an injury, hadn't pitched in 18 days, and you had to trot out there and hope that Bryce Elder could win a pivotal game in Game 3. And so I think that you're right in the sense that they're looking for somebody that they trust to go out there and pitch in the playoffs and be there for the playoff push. But I just wonder if they didn't have some injury and durability concerns with Sonny Gray.
Yeah, and that's very fair. Last year was the first time since 2019 that he had 30 starts in a season. Now, obviously, one of those years is a COVID shortened year. I sure hope he wasn't going to put 30 starts in the in the 60 game season. That would be pretty dumb. But yeah, he hasn't been very durable. And to be honest, he kind of, it feels like every other year you feel like Sonny Gray's done for. I don't know if you feel the same way, but when he was in Oakland, he had 2016 he had a 5.7 ERA, and everyone was like, "Wow, he went from an ace to a bust really quick." He has 4.9 in 2018, a 4.2 in 2021. And those are all seasons where you felt like, well, okay, that's the end of the Sonny Gray run. He's fallen off a cliff pretty quick. And then last year he finishes second in Cy Young voting. What I mean, how does that even happen? He's been really good, but I get being concerned about it. I do. I get feeling like 6 of the last 7 years we haven't gotten a Cy Young top 5 finisher out of Sonny Gray. Now all of a sudden we're going to get that consistently. Maybe, maybe not. Um, there's other people you could trade for. There's other decent starters out there still. I don't think specifically Sonny Gray was the move, but again, if you're in on anybody, now you figure out who's next. The big rumors are hometown boy Dylan Cease. Where do you stand on Dylan Cease? I'm back to asking the questions now. So where do you stand on Dylan Cease?
Well, so quickly to wrap up on Sonny Gray too, I think you got to look at his age too.
Yeah.
So he's not getting any younger. And do you want to pay $25 million for 5.76 or whatever his ERA was that year? Do you want to pay $25 million for a 4.25 ERA on a guy and be locked into a 3-year deal? It's not Charlie Morton, who you're getting for other reasons besides just that, and on 1-year deals over and over and over and over and over until he's ready to hang him up. This is you're saying I'm going to pay him $75 million over 3 years. So I do think, like you said, I don't think Sonny Gray was necessarily the guy that a lot of Braves country thought was just this magical fit. But as far as Dylan Cease is concerned, at first I didn't love the fact of, okay, he's got 2 years of control. So, what are we going to have to give up to get a guy for 2 years of control? But you turn around and you think about it, and to me, control, when really thinking about it, control years aren't quite as big of a deal for a pitcher as it is for a position player, because think about what was it in 2017, I think, with Jose Quintana and what everybody thought they were going to get. And, you get 14 good starts over, a few years after that because he had a bunch of years, So my thing is Cease goes out and is he as good as everybody makes him out to be? I don't know. I don't know if I'm quite sold on the fact that he is that tier of a guy. But he goes out there and takes the ball every fifth day, and he pitches 30 times a year, and he's there for the playoffs. And I think with where we faltered in the last couple of years, you need a guy like him. And so I think if you can get him for one of Smith Shaver, Elder, or Waldrop, that you probably make the deal. Even if that means, say it's a deal for Elder, Grissom, Owen Murphy, and somebody else. If that's the deal you've got to make, then I think you take it. Now, if they're like, hey, we want Smith Shaver, we want Waldrop, we want Grissom, we want Murphy, we don't have a deep prospect pool. Our farm system is not very great. So I don't know that 2 years for a Scott Boras client that's probably going to go to free agency. It doesn't come off as the type that it's going to be, hey, we're going to trade for this guy and we're going to sign him to an 8-year deal that's team friendly, just because of who his agent is. And we've the Braves have avoided Boras agents or Boras clients. So I think if you can get him for and not completely deplete your limited farm system, I think you go get him. But I also think it's going to come down to what other teams are willing to give, because there are plenty of other teams that can outbid the Braves in prospects. It's just how many of those teams, somebody like the Dodgers, are they going to be in on Cease, and what are they willing to offer? And so I think there's a lot of moving parts of that. But I say all that to say, if you can go get somebody like Dylan Cease, and we win one World Series in the next 2 years, and he walks in 2 years, that's a trade I'm willing to make.
Yeah, and I'm a big Dylan Cease guy. I gotta say I'm pretty subjective here because I'm just a huge fan of his. I always have been. Um, Even when he was like drafted, when he's in the minors, I remember being like, this guy's gonna be the real deal. So I personally have very high opinions of Dylan Cease. To me, I think Dylan Cease takes you from the favorite to every team has to look at you and go, what on earth can we do to beat that rotation and that lineup? I would do whatever you need to take to get him. I mean, he's my guy. His 2022 numbers are some of the craziest numbers that don't ever get talked about. I'm looking at his baseball savant page. I want to throw some numbers out. This is percentile. So, of course, 100th percentile means you're the best in baseball. He was the 100th percentile in the value to his breaking balls. Like, he had the best breaking balls in all of baseball. They're unhittable when they're on. Um, his XBA was 184, 96th percentile. His hard hit percentage, 93rd percentile. He's not getting hit hard. Um, he was incredible to watch. He was must see TV. And him and Strider being spread out in the rotation means that every series you walk into, you have a guy that can go 8 innings with 12, 13 strikeouts. Or not 8 innings, but they can go their 6 innings, pick up 12 strikeouts, not give up a single run, and then you let your bullpen go. I would I'd go the house on this one. Make it happen. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and that's the thing is a lot of that I do agree with that. And like I said, I think especially when you weigh him out with the other options that are out there, like you said, I think he's the guy. I just think that if you're the Braves, you try to not give up both Smith Shaver and Waldrop, just because Fried is a free agent after next year. And as high as you are on Dylan Cease, I am 10 times higher on Max Fried. Max Fried is my guy. Okay. Top two favorite baseball players in baseball right now is Max Fried is one of those two. So I'm as high as you can get on somebody on a pitcher as I am with Max Fried. More than likely, he's gone after next year. I think he goes out west. I think Giants, Dodgers. He ends up in Southern California, where he's from, And of course, I would love for the Braves to be like, hey, we've extended Max Fried. He's the PA rep for the Braves. He's going to go to free agency. And I think he's going to go out west. And I hope I'm wrong on that, but I just think that that's the way that goes. And so if you lose Fried after 24, and you lose Morton after 24, and you lose Cease after 25, and you've given up Smith Shawver and Waldrop, and you've traded Soroka, and you've traded Kyle Wright, you go into 2026, and you've got a whole rotation to build. You've got Spencer Strider and Bryce Elder, and that's all you've got. And I think your offensive window is so good. Your offensive window isn't. Most of the guys in the lineup are signed through 2027, 2028, 2032 for Austin Riley, 2031 for Matt Olson. Your offensive window is so long, you have to say, okay, are we mortgaging the farm for the next 2 years, or do we think our window is longer than that? And I think that's kind of the way that you look at it. And I think Smith Shawver or Waldrop both could be a rotation piece in 2 years. And so I think you just have to ask, okay, if I'm AA and I have the inner knowings of how the Max Fried situation is playing out, and Morton's going to be gone probably after this year. I can't imagine he pitches another year after this one. So you figure probably Morton and Fried both gone. Do you really want to mortgage every arm that you've got that you think can be an MLB arm on a team like the Braves, not a team like the Pirates or the Royals or some of those teams? You want to give up every one of them that you've got and hope that you can, because eventually the money runs out. You can only sign so many free agents. If you've signed all your offense to these deals, Acuna gets a new deal or Albies gets a new deal. Strider's locked up, but are you going to go out and sign 3 free agent starting pitchers every year? And then things get a little hairy there. So I think that's my only hesitation. It's not so much as Cease as a player, but it's, are we going to mess around and shorten our window because of our starting pitching?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot to look into with that. You have to play the long game. But I just think that I look at other teams that aren't playing as long ahead as the Braves, and I'm like, you'd have to do a lot to let them catch up to you. Nobody's gonna have the Braves offense even in 5 years. Stuff's gonna happen, and even if uh, there's not one team where everyone's at their potential, they're better than what the Braves have for the next few years. They're that far
Right.
head and shoulders, in my opinion. And so, do you make this a problem now and then worry about it in 2 years? Maybe it is. Maybe it's okay. Well, we don't have as many good, prospects as we did a couple years ago, but this team's trading this guy. We can make it happen. We'll bring in somebody else at that time. Let's worry about 2027 staff and 2027 sort of vibe from that. But why shorten your window? If it's to guarantee yourself something, you think this is the move. I get it. If it's not the move, though, you have to play that game and say, okay, let's think a little bit farther ahead and make sure we're being safe. But I'm good with either option, honestly. If you want to get Dylan Cease, get it. If you want to get Jordan Montgomery, who I think would be a really good addition with his playoff success, go ahead, happen. But make it happen. I don't want to sit walking in this year with what we have right now and say that's all, we're done.
Yeah, and I don't think we do. Um, for me, I think if you had to say, hey, rank who's out there available, who you want to sign, I think I probably trade for. Package is right. Dylan Cease is one. I think I lean a little bit towards Erod at 2, a little bit over Montgomery. Just one of those guys that I like Erod. When I watch him pitch, I like watching him pitch the way he pitches. I just think it's a little bit different than when you think about Braves lefties. It's Max Fried. It's not that big, hard throwing lefty, and so I like him a little bit more than Montgomery. But I think if you can go out and get any 3 of those, I think that you have built that team that says, hey, what do we? The other teams say, hey, what do we do with these guys? If you can go out there and throw Fried, Strider, Morton, and Montgomery, in a playoff series, you feel pretty good about that. Same thing with Erod or with Cease. You feel good about any of those arms. So I think you go out there and do that. And you go get one of those guys, and you kind of let it ride from there, and kind of see what it is. I think what happens with the starting pitching is going to dictate what happens in left field. I think that the left field move will be made after the starting pitching move, not before. Because if you need Vaughn Grissom in a deal for Dylan Cease, then you trade Vaughn Grissom in a deal for Dylan Cease, and now you definitely have a hole in left field. If you go out and you sign Erod or Montgomery, somebody like that, I think you trot Vaughn Grissom out in left field, and you say, look, we'll take some of the growing pains of you in left field because we didn't have to give up anything in order to get that number 3 gets starting pitcher.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and they are tandem moves for sure. There's going to be something done at both. But I like that seesaw battle of the starting pitching being figured out first, and then let's worry about left field because ultimately it very well could be the eighth best hitter and ninth best hitter in your lineup, and you're okay with that because of the seven or eight in front of them. But there's still so much to go on, and like you said, the winter meetings are coming up soon. So I am ready to see what happens and ready to give the analysis as it comes up because there's just so many things we could still think about between now and when these deals actually start going down. Um, which leads me in, if unless you have any finishing thoughts, Sean, to my prospect of the week. Do you have anything else you want to add before we change subjects here?
No, I do think I'm interested to see what the Rays do with Randy Arozarena. When you talk about Braves in left field, Arozarena's got 3 years of team control. I mean, that's a huge get. Now that might be the only time you make a move for left field before you figure out your starting pitching. Because if you think, look, I can go get Arozarena. I mean, he's a true left fielder, 3 years of team control. You think about where he would slide in that lineup, and you could put him at 2. You could put him at 6. You could put him 7. I mean, like, there's so many spots that you could put a Rosarena, and you're like, dude, if Randy Rosarena is your 7-hole hitter and hitting behind him, I mean, you hitting behind him is Orlando Arcia and Michael Harris. Like, that is a deep, deep, deep lineup. And so, or even if he's 6 and you're like, look, he's got Ozzy Albies hitting behind him, the like because so I just think that that would be the only move and that's what I was going to say because I said that I think starting pitching falls first. That's the domino that falls first. That's the only way that I think it doesn't fall first is if the Braves somehow put together a package for Randy Arozarena.
Which could very well happen. Rays are selling a lot of pieces, so you might even be able to get both. Ooh, now we're talking. That's ooh. So I will jump in then to my prospect of the week before we get lost in, I could talk about these potential moves for 8 hours. So let's talk about Cade Cooler instead. How do you pronounce it? I've heard different pronunciation. I've heard Cooler and Cooler. Cooler, right?
I usually say Cooler, but I don't. It's one of those things where you might hear me say it twice over 15 minutes, and it would be said different ways. So
So Chad Kuehler, he is just picked in 2023. He was drafted 70th overall. He entered the draft as a number 59 prospect in the class. So AA got himself a little bit of a steal there, about 11 picks later than where they expected him to go. He is the highest ever draft pick from the Campbell Camels, which, fun fact, are named because how close they actually just thought Camel and Campbell sounded similar. So that's what they made their nickname. So the Camels, he was a solid prospect, and then all of a sudden went crazy this year. He was 8-1 with a 2.71 ERA during the college season, and then did pitch in 2 games for Single A Augusta, the Green Jackets. Only 1 hit over those 7 innings, so he came in and looked really good on his first professional action. He's got a really good fastball, peaks out about 98, usually sits about 96 or so. A slider that he throws really hard. So hard sometimes it can even act like a cutter because it has so much speed on it without as much horizontal movement. Um, he's got a lot of good stuff, it looks like. He is projected for a 2026 ETA, so a little while out still. But the struggles that he has is just location. A lot of 21-year-old pitchers like him with big stuff struggle with that. So a guy who, if the Braves organization can coach him up, really could be an absolute steal from where they got him. He's definitely somebody to watch his progression in the pro game, and that is Cade Kuehler. Kuehler. Did you have any
No,
thoughts on him?
I do think yeah, I mean I think it says a couple of things. So he's the Braves' fourth overall prospect in their top 100. So that tells you two things. First of all, you're pretty high on him in regards as being a prospect and his stuff. His stuff is good, like you said. If he can keep the ball where it needs to be, his stuff is good. So he's got good stuff. You hope that Braves pitching, the pitching coaches and stuff can kind of coach him up. We see his progression. But it also did, then again, it also speaks to the shallowness of the farm system that you've got. I think, if I'm not mistaken, two of the top five in the prospects were drafted in 2023. I think you've got him and Waldrop, correct?
Yep.
So I think there's good and bad there, but I do think he's definitely a guy to watch. Um, whether he is when you're talking about a team like the Braves, there's not really ever a time where you feel like they're going to be like, this prospect is untouchable because of the window that they're in. It's really hard to imagine them saying there's no way we would ever trade AJ Smith-Shawver, or there's no way we would ever trade Hurston Waldrop. There's no way we would ever trade Cade Kuehler. Like, it's hard to imagine them saying that. So, do we see him in 2026? I don't know. I mean, if he stays in the farm system, then maybe that means that we signed some people in free agency and we didn't have to mortgage the farm to fill out the roster and really try to push ourselves over that edge. But I think he's got exciting stuff. Braves got a couple of arms down there in the on that prospect list that have exciting arms. Again, Waldrop and Smith-Shawver 1 and 2 are exceptional arms. So I'm excited to see what the Braves can do with some of those pitching prospects that they've got down there.
Yeah, and if you want to hear about some of the other prospects, I got actually a poll up, by the way, on X for everyone to vote in to figure out what our next prospect of the week will be. So I want to hear some impact who you guys want to hear about. But yeah, it is tough, and especially when a guy's so young, 21 years old. Even if you do a 2026, he's still only 24. And for a lot of these power pitchers, it usually takes to 24, 25 to get to the pros. So even if he's a step behind, you're talking about now he's almost collecting Social Security, like I said earlier about Jackson Cowrie. He's in one of those situations. So, I definitely think that, it's easy to not get attached to some of the guys that you feel like, all right, they really have to exceed my expectations to be a player here. But he is somebody who could make that huge jump out of nowhere. Again, 7 innings, one hit ball in your professional debut across 2 games. That's super impressive stuff. He is definitely just looking better and better as years go by. And not many people expected Spencer Strider to be as good as he was, as quick as he was. But when you see a guy making those huge strides and like, whoa, this is better than we thought we had. The Braves have shown they're quick. They'll jump on it and take advantage for as long as they can.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, AJ Smith-Shawver pitched meaningful innings this year. He was 20. He just turned 21. He couldn't buy a beer legally in the United States, and he was pitching meaningful Major League Baseball games. Like, the Braves are not scared. If you can pitch, if you can hit, if you can play, they are going to bring you up. That is the way that they're going to do it. That's the way that they've always done it. They're going to bring you up. And like we see, if you can't contribute, they're going to get you out. They're going to send you out. They're not going to pay people. They're not going to hold people that they don't think they can contribute, or if they think that they can get somebody that can contribute more, they're going to send them out. So, but again, I think he's a good arm to watch. We've got a couple of those down there. And I think that leads us into the Sandman surefire pick of the week.
Buddy, and
Okay,
this is
so
not gambling advice. We are not giving gambling advice. Sean is just telling you how he's going to win money this week, and I will also be winning money because of Sean this week. But this is not gambling advice. Just because we do it doesn't mean you also have to. This is not advice.
no, not advice. And like we say every week, if you've got a problem, call the hotline. And we don't say that in jest. You know, we may laugh about it a little bit or whatever, but if you have a problem, please call the hotline. Again, not betting advice, not gambling advice, not financial advice, none of the above. So, for those of you listeners that do not know, Dirty Dave, I've got 2 bets this week, but one of them is dipping back into my roots. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, your boy used to be an MMA fighter.
Yeah,
So I fought 25 times in MMA. And so we've got some good fights going on in the UFC on Saturday. They're not huge names, so it's not people that most people are going to be like. You've got some of those names in the UFC that even if you're just a sports fan, you tend to know about them and hear about them, and you might peek in on some of those. You know, if somebody that likes to partake in gambling responsibly, somebody that responsibly gambles, then you might hop into some of those bigger fights. But so my first one I'm going to do is the UFC event on Saturday. I've got a 4-leg parlay because those are my favorite. 4 legs. It's the only way to hold the table up. So that's just the way that I play my parlays. All right. So you got 4 legs. All right. I'm taking Sean Brady at minus 122. All of these are just straight picks. They're not. These are just who's going to win the fight. All right. So Sean Brady at minus 122. Jalen Turner at minus 198. I got Davison Figueiredo, plus 114, and Armin Sarukian. All right, he's one of those Belarusians or from somewhere over there. Okay, but he is an absolute monster. He's minus 310. Take all 4 of those on DraftKings tonight. It is a plus 765 parlay. $10 turns into 77.51. So make yourself about $67 there. And my second pick, my second parlay, another 4-leg. This is back in the NFL, kind of more the norm here. So I've got the Steelers money line. They're minus 238. I've got the Falcons. I'm taking the Falcons points at minus 2. That's a minus 110. Dolphins. They're playing the Commanders. I'm taking the points. It's minus 9.5. I think the Dolphins put it on Washington, minus 110. And I'm taking the Broncos money line, which is plus 170. So the Broncos are dogs against the Texans rather. Broncos have been really good over the last few weeks. I think they've won 5 straight or 5 out of the last 6 or something like that. So I'm taking those 4: Steelers money line, Broncos money line, Falcons minus 2, Dolphins minus 9.5. Those will be plus 722 odds. $10 turns into 82.20. So you tail those, be up $150 by the end of Sunday night. Sunday afternoon. You get out. You get up from your nap. You get out of church. Whatever it is you do on Sunday mornings. When you get up and you get done and you get out, you finish with lunch on Sunday, you start dinner on Sunday, you'll be up $150. But again, not gambling advice. If you have a problem, call the hotline. Other than that, those are your Sandman's surefire picks of the week.
Definitely not gambling advice, but if I'm getting rich off Sean and you aren't, you think about what that means. But I'm not saying you should do it. It's not at all. It's just I am ready to see what happens. Last time we got off the show, the Aaron Bummer trade happened like an hour and a half later or so. So I'm hoping that by us sitting here today and talking into our cameras on YouTube and our microphones on Spotify, that we hear that tonight that Randy Arozarena and Shohei Ohtani are Braves.
No, yeah, and what's funny is I think you mentioned on the show. I think you mentioned us needing or getting a big power lefty. I think you were talking about Josh Hader, but I think we went and we might have got the great value Josh Hader going and getting Mr. Aaron Bummer. No disrespect to Aaron Bummer. No disrespect. That's all in jest. It's all in jest. All right. So, but yes, no, I would love to see a deal tonight or before we upload this. I'll even give them until tomorrow at some point. Before we upload this, let's get a deal. Get me Dylan Cease, get me Randy Rosarena, or go out there and sign me Erod or Jay Montgomery, and let's roll.
Yeah, buddy. Well, that is going to be all we got for this week. As mentioned before, don't forget to give us a follow on X/Twitter. Give us a follow on Spotify, YouTube. Go to Facebook, like our page. We have polls up right now. We've been more active on social. I've been more active on social media, trying to get us out there a little bit more. But yeah, give us a go and let's talk some Braves baseball this off season. Any those you guys, Sean, before we head on out here tonight?
Nope. I mean, I think I'm good. So Dave. I'm going to sign us off. I've not done this in a little bit, so we've got a treat tonight. All right. So thank you again, like Dave said, for following us, listening to us on the Battery Mates podcast. I'm the Sandman, Sean Lastly. That's Dirty Dave, and we'll see you next time.